Okay. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna record this. Hi everyone, this is Justin from the Kansas Socialist Book Club. So what was supposed to happen today is, and it might still happen, is that we were supposed to have a special guest speaker from the Communist Party of Swaziland, Comrade Pius Rinto. That is the CP Swaziland International Secretary, right? And let me throw my camera on here. Yeah, hi. So we were supposed to have Comrade Pius come on. However, because he is living a life in exile somewhere in South Africa, the internet is not that reliable because I've been there before and it's really not that reliable. So what we hope is that he will come into this meeting whenever he gets the internet connection back. And then, so that way we still have some people here. So what I was going to do was give a presentation about Swaziland. That is the membership presentation that we give in the Friends of Swazi Freedom whenever we induct a new member and we give them this presentation. So Danny, I guess this will count for you as well, right? But the plan is I'm going to give this presentation. We'll have a discussion about it. And then at any point, if Pius comes in because he has the information to get on here, I will just hand the floor over to him and he can explain it in his own words. I think that'll work out. So let me go ahead and get started here with this. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share this one. Okay, so can everyone see it? It says Swaziland in introduction.
I can see it.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So like I said, this is Friends of Swazi Freedom educational material, but we can use it. And at least that way everyone can get a background about what, because I know I've talked about it a lot, but I don't know if anyone has ever had the opportunity to sit down and actually like have a comprehensive idea of what's going on there. Because it's really significant. It's actually like probably one of the most advanced explicitly Marxist-Leninist revolutions going on in the global South, specifically in a small country called Swaziland. We'll get into it though. Okay, oops, there we go. All right, so here's some basic facts, right? So Swaziland is the highlighted little country here. The proper name for it is called Eswatini, which, as you can see there, we'll talk about that. So if you hear someone say Eswatini, it's the same thing as Swaziland. But yeah, so it's here. It has about a population of about 1.3 million people, not a very large country. And 70% of those people live in rural areas. And when I say rural areas, Comrade Treasurer Candy, who I spoke with when I visited them, this is her description of it. She said, like, people literally live in mud huts. Like, they go and they get some mud from like the river and they build a house out of it, like a 1-bedroom house. It's extreme poverty, and most of the people live in a rural situation like that, just to give you an idea. It is the last absolute monarchy in Africa. Yeah, when we say an absolute monarchy, that's not like somewhere like Denmark where, or United Kingdom where they have a ceremonial figurehead, right? In this case, like the king his rule is absolute. His name is Mswati III. And he's basically, anything he says is law. He can overrule the courts. He can overrule the legislature, which in fact he has multiple times. He's like these guys in the background here, Stalin and Mao. Everyone wants to paint them out like the absolute dictators, but no, it's actually King Mswati III of Swaziland who's the dictator. It is the 10th most unequal country in the world. The poverty there is extreme. Like I haven't actually been in Swaziland. I was in South Africa, but like I spoke with that and just, yeah, like it's so bad that they tell me people like they can't buy food from the stores, so they will go forage like wild berries and vegetables and different plants, and some people just die from poisoning because they literally have no other option than to eat. And it's, yeah, and all the wealth pretty much goes to the king. He has like, I think King Mswati's worth like $700 million. That's like his net worth, and that's the assets we know about, right? So you got on one hand a royal family and a king worth almost $1 billion, and on the other hand you have people dying because they have to forage for food. It's extremely unequal. Yeah, 70% of the rural population lives below the poverty line, and 25% of them live in extreme poverty. Yeah, like it's just it's really intense, and that has the highest rate of HIV prevalence in the world. It's a huge epidemic over there, and that's just because things are so unequal. They don't have medicine in the hospitals. The hospitals can't treat it, not because they don't have, like they have doctors, they have nurses, they have the knowledge and the human resources to treat it. It's just because the king literally sucks up all the wealth, as well as the multinational corporations, which we'll get into, that they don't have the medicine. They don't have the money to purchase the medicine because it's literally all being taken by foreign corporations as well as the royal family. Oh yeah, so yeah, here it says it renamed Eswatini in 2018 by royal decree, right? So the language that is spoken by most people in Eswatini is a language called Siswati. I'm not like a languages guy, so I can tell you like, oh, it descends from this language, but I know it's also, Siswati is also spoken a lot in South Africa. I believe it is actually one of the legally recognized languages in South Africa. So Eswatini, Eswatini means lands of the Swazis in Siswati. And you might think, oh, well, that's cool. Why don't we call it Eswatini? Because Swaziland is what it was known as when it was a possession of the British Commonwealth and a colonial subject. So a lot of people naturally want, and it's a good question, they want to ask, why do we call it Swaziland? Why wouldn't you call it Eswatini? And the reason for that, as explained by the Communist Party, is that that basically, I just wanted to make sure he didn't join. Let me put the thing here. Okay. Yeah, if Pius joins while I'm talking and someone notices it, please speak up, because I don't want to like continue talking when he could explain this better than I possibly could. But anyways, yeah, why do we call it Eswatini? The king, being an absolute monarch, just one day decided, oh, we're going to change the name to Eswatini. He didn't consult anyone. It wasn't even voted on by the legislature, which is a complete sham, by the way. He just unilaterally decided to rename the entire ass country. And so the Communist Party, they obviously, they're like, that's undemocratic. We don't want that. Therefore, we're going to call it Swaziland. So that's why they still, even though Swaziland is a colonial name, that's one of the reasons they use it. And another reason they use it is because this is actually one of the strategies, like the soft counterinsurgency strategies used by the monarchy, is that they, in a very liberal fashion, they want to kind of, what do you say, appropriate identity politics. So they want to, because when they go to the United Nations, obviously you can see the conditions here are not that good. But then when Mswati goes to the United Nations, this is an indigenous African culture, and therefore you can advertise it as like, oh, come to Swaziland, the land of, exotic safaris, and you can, get in touch with the natives, and they can market it like that for economy, and also to diffuse criticism from groups like Friends of Swazi Freedom. They can say like, oh yeah, well, that's the indigenous name for it. But just know that that's the people in Swaziland. They feel differently about it. That's why we call it that. Yes, major industries include coal, sugar, textiles, soft drinks, and timber. Also not included on this list, I learned out there's a lot of illegal mining operations, particularly for iron and gold. Now, with these major industries, as you can imagine, the profits from these industries don't hit the Swazi people. And some of it, like the Mswati regime, takes a cut. But where does most of the wealth go? It goes to multinational corporations that are doing neo-colonialism, right? That's literally what it is. So the two big ones, the two biggest industries from the list here are textiles and sugar. So as far as textiles go, those all go to Taiwan. Taiwan sucks up all the profits from textiles. So think about that, right? When America wants to say, oh, we love Taiwan, and Taiwan is a victim of Chinese imperialism, and it's like, no, actually, it's Taiwan is the one that's doing the imperialism, not China. Because again, I've talked with the leadership of the Communist Party there, and in their opinion, it's basically like, yeah, we understand China's making some business deals and they're self-interested, but they genuinely feel that China gives them a legitimately fair deal that's far better than anything that the European Union or the United States would give them. But Taiwan, on the other hand, they go in there. And when I spoke with some of the comrades, they were telling me horrible things. For example, in a Taiwanese garment factory, pregnant women who were like in the 3rd trimester of their pregnancy they would give birth on the factory floor. And the factory would not call an ambulance for them. They wouldn't provide any medical assistance. And the worst part is, as soon as the women gave birth to these children, the Taiwanese factory owners would be, all right, take a 10-minute break, back to work. Like, it's just, I can't imagine that. I cannot even imagine what that would be like. One, as a parent, and two, as a woman who just, your body went through giving birth. I cannot imagine what that's like. And also the wages at these Taiwanese factories, I've been told, are so low and so impoverished that a lot of women are forced to resort to prostitution because a lot of women come from these rural areas, but the factories aren't located in the rural areas. So they come from all around Swaziland and they move there to get work, to provide for their families. And then because they're away from their families, they have to buy, room and board from the company. And that comes out of their wages, which are already low. So yeah, it's just a really horrible situation with the Taiwanese. And in addition to that, the Taiwanese also donate military helicopters, UH-1H Huey helicopters. That's a utility helicopter, but you can mount a machine gun on the side and just mow people down, which the regime has literally done that already. They donate weapons, they donate all kinds of horrible things, right? And then the other one that we said was sugar, right? Sugar goes, some of it goes into the European Union, or I'm sorry, some of it goes to the United States. And I believe our research committee tracked it down to a Coca-Cola manufacturing plant, and I believe it was Minnesota, but I don't remember exactly where it was at. But it's about $250 million worth of sugar every year comes to the United States. The rest goes to the European Union, right? Particularly, I believe it was obviously England because of the colonial history there, as well as the Netherlands. So again, and people want to talk about, like, oh, the Netherlands and Denmark and all these Nordic states are great socialism. Like, yeah, the reason they can afford socialism is because they're parasitizing Swaziland, right? Some other significant colonial relationships are with iron, the Japanese actually. Japan is very much still engaged in colonialism. And the Koreans, South Koreans to be specific as well, they send missionaries into Swaziland, and then the regime basically says, all right, yeah, we'll give you these good deals, and in exchange you preach to our people that like Mswati is the divine right of kings and he's the legitimate ruler. And so that way, that's kind of like a soft imperialism, whereas Taiwan is like a hard imperialism that uses military force. The imperialism of Japan and Korea rely on a kind of, I call it like a soft imperialism, like religious indoctrination. That was another thing I learned. But yeah, they also take iron for cars, specifically Toyota, Hyundai, and yeah. So that's about some basic facts there. So early history, right? How did it get this way? So the earliest settlements include Khoisan, I might have pronounced that wrong, Sotho, and early Bantu migrants, right? And so, yeah, there's like a mixture of ethnic groups in the area. Oh, what's this? Did you just message me? Oh, Pius said he's going to be logging in. Let me just message him back. Okay, cool. So yeah, basically when he logs on, I'm just going to introduce him real briefly and then hand the floor over to Comrade Pius. Excellent. Very good. Anyways, Pius can explain this pretty well, but basically it was settled by the Ngwane people, present-day Mozambique, in mid 18th century. They have different, they call them clans, like family dynastic bloodlines. Pius can get more into this. Did he just join? Oh, John. Okay. And then, oh, okay. Yeah, he just told me that the issue is because when I set this up, it was before the time zones switched. So I told him 9 o'clock his time, thinking that would be 1 o'clock our time. But then I forgot that we moved forward an hour. So we were just, our schedules were off sync. That's my mistake. I apologize about that.
That's really funny because I got the thought like at some point this morning, I'm like, huh, I wonder if everybody accounted for time changes when we scheduled this. Like it was just a random thought that came to my head. That's hilarious.
Oh,
I
man.
was gonna ask because at first it said that what was it? 1 p.m. CST. And then
Yes.
on the Twitter post it was 1 p.m. CDT.
Yeah. Yeah, that's completely my fault. I completely messed that up. I apologize. Yeah, it's completely my fault. Sorry about that. What else here? Yeah, so basically, you had all these different, you had like the royal families derived from the Zulu ethnicity, and they basically were having wars with, like Bantu and other non-Bantu tribes. And out of that came the Emaswati in the 19th century. And because they were fighting at war with each other, some of these family lines decided, they saw, oh, look, the British and the Dutch have guns. Let's ally themselves and be like their compradors. So comprador means like a ruling class in a developing colonized nation that aligns themselves with the colonizer, right? That's what that word means. But they basically said, all right, we're going to ally ourselves with the British and Dutch, and we'll cut them in, and they'll give us guns, and then we can establish, our kingdom. That was basically the thought process there. Yeah, and then as you know, so look at the geography of it, right? You got Swaziland, as I'm going to go back here. You got Swaziland, it's like literally sandwiched between Mozambique and South Africa. And as we know, the Dutch were colonizing South Africa, the ethnic group they call the Afrikaners, or the Boers, right? They were basically, that's how the Netherlands got involved there. And there was a series of land sales to Afrikaner settlers in 1846 to 1855. Let's see. Yeah, he actually, we're going to be joined by a number of people from the Communist Party of Swaziland. I don't know all who, but he said that there were multiple people who wanted to join. So that's really cool. I think we'll get to talk with multiple comrades. I'm very excited for that. But anyways, can explain this better. So basically, yeah, they were recognized by the British as an independent in 1881. They were in exchange for conceding some of their land in Mpumalanga. That's a city in South Africa. It's actually where I stayed, I believe. So it's like to the east of what the modern day borders of Swaziland are, about 2 hours west. And then the independence, of course, in the colonial fashion was rescinded, and it was considered part of the South African Republic as a protectorate, right? So a colony. Swaziland was indirectly involved in the Boer War. And again, because the British were not really known for their treatment of African people, right? They were known for being pretty cruel exploiters. So some of the people, the Swazi people said, you know what? we'll go with the Boers. You know, maybe they'll treat us a little better. And they were conscripted, and then they revolted, and then they switched side. Oh, here he is. He's joining right now. Hello, Comrade Pius. Everyone, this is Comrade Pius Vilakati. He is the International Secretary of the Communist Party of Swaziland. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen now because I'm going to, and yeah, I guess he's going to be bringing some other comrades from the party in. I just wanted to introduce him, and anyways, he can explain this way better than I can. So, Comrade Pius, we are very thankful to have you here. The floor is yours whenever you want.
Greetings, comrades. Greetings, Comrade Justin. Thank you so much. I'm not sure where you were because we had the miscommunication earlier that, you know, the time zones, we're not aware of that.
Yeah, that was my fault, Comrade. I apologize about that. It was an oversight on my part.
All right, thanks so much, comrades. Some of our comrades will be joining in as well as we go. So thank you so much. Comrade Tim Piwe is the National Organizing Secretary. He's just joining now. I see him here. Otherwise, on the Swazi struggle, I think you were on that as well.
Yes, we were talking about the early history of Swaziland, but whatever you want to speak about, please, by all means.
All right. Just bear with me, because I will be on and off the screen, where depending on our network, sometimes it can be bad. So Swaziland, you know, the Swaziland story often it gets dwarfed internationally by the fact that Swaziland is a very small country, about 17,000 square kilometers, and a small population of up to 1.3 million people in the country. And of course, it is sandwiched between South Africa and Mozambique. And sometimes people believe that Swaziland is a part of South Africa when it is not, in fact. And of course, there is a long history to that as well, because the colonizers, Britain and the settlers in South Africa, they had, without even considering the people of Swaziland, decided that amongst themselves that after British colonialism ends, the British will hand over Swaziland to South Africa, together with Lesotho and Botswana. Now, Swaziland, of course, is a product of the long history of colonialism, just like many other African countries. But when you look at the 18th century, which, I mean, the 19th century, which is the time when the British actually settle into Swaziland and take over, together with the Dutch settlers which were in South Africa. Because at first, you had the South African white settlers who were running farms through Swaziland. And at that time, by that time, we already had the Dlamini dynasty, which is the ancestors of the current ruling Dlamini clan. But of course, even there, we also had other clans which were chiefs in the territory, which is now known as Swaziland, because the Dlaminis also took over in the 18th century from the clans that had coexisted in the territory, which is now known as Swaziland. And the Dlaminis, they overpowered those clans and took over. So by the 18th century, the Dlamini dynasty was very strong and was ruling over the country. And the first point was that, especially late in the 19th century, we had now the first relationship between the local rulers and the settlers, particularly insofar as grazing land was concerned for the livestock of the settlers. Now, that's where that relationship started, and it still continues even today. That is the relationship. If you trace the history of the relationship between the royal family and international capital, those are the roots of that relationship. And with the Anglo-Boer War, which is 1899, between 1899 and 1902, where the British defeated the Boers, and the British officially became the colonizers of Swaziland in 1903, after defeating the Boers who were running South Africa in the main. Now, from there, Swaziland was called, officially they called Swaziland, they referred to Swaziland as a protectorate. But in effect, all the rules of colonialism applied on Swaziland as well. So the protectorate term is just one of those terms used to present a clean image of colonialism. It is the same as other terms such as British mandate that were used, particularly either leading to the First World War or after that. Now, Swaziland, of course, gained independence in 1968. But now the process leading to 1968 is a process of consolidation of power by the royal family. At that time, it was Sobhuza II. It was consolidation of power by the royal family, and also the consolidation of the relations between the royal family and international capital. And international capital now chose the Dlamini dynasty, the Dlamini ruling clan, to be the ones to be the absolute rulers of everyone else. And this is why we often say that the monarchical rule in Swaziland is a product of British colonialism. So the royal family itself, the ruling royal family, is a product of colonialism, and it cannot be separated from that. And of course, colonialism in the context of the spreading of capitalism across the world. Now, that's what happened even leading to 1968, where Swaziland had its first democratic elections. But between 1968 and 1972, the political party of the king was the sole ruler, because they had won all the seats in parliament, which was 24 seats. They had won all the seats due to the support they received, first from international capital, but also from South African apartheid government. And they swept the boards. Even the formation of his political party, the Imbokodo National Movement, the formation of that political party was due to advice from apartheid South Africa to protect their interests, particularly to ensure that the South African liberation movement does not find space into any territory closest to South Africa. And those were the primary interests of apartheid, the apartheid regime, of course, including economic interests, because the sanctions were beginning to bite on apartheid South Africa. And so, but in 1972, the opposition won 3 seats out of those 24. Now, it was clear now to the government of Swaziland, to the monarchy, that if within 5 years, the opposition could gain 3 seats, moving forward, things might get worse. Again, with the advice of the apartheid regime, Sobhuza II, he took the unilateral decision to repeal the 1968 constitution. And when he did that, he also banned all political parties, all political organizations as well were banned. And from then he said that he's going to bestow all legislative, executive, and judicial powers on himself as the monarch in Swaziland. And this has been the situation till now. All the powers that were set up in 1973, 12 April 1973, they still remain with the monarchy as an absolute ruler of the country. So we have an absolute monarchy rule problem in Swaziland till now. Now, this system has worsened everything in terms of the powers, the lives of the people of Swaziland. And in the 80s particularly, there was this feeling of that things were improving in terms of economic life in Swaziland. But this was due to the fact that with the sanctions biting in South Africa, Swaziland became a conveyor belt for sanctions busting. So the apartheid regime used Swaziland to continue its deals internationally because it could not do so directly from South Africa. So due to that, the economy of Swaziland seemed to improve in the 80s. And then it started plunging after South Africa became free in 1994. And it has been worsening over and over as the decades went by. Of course, the relations between South Africa, between Swaziland and international capital continued even then. And over time, Swaziland has been saved by international capital on an imperialistic way to rescue the regime from collapse, to rescue the regime from being overthrown by the people. Now, the struggles of the people have been fighting since 1973, despite all these difficulties. And the democratic movement has been growing over the years. Now, the Communist Party of Swaziland was formed on the 9th of April, 2011. Most of the comrades who formed the Communist Party already had experience in the struggle, either from union work or as members of particularly Pudemo. And when we formed the Communist Party, this was the first party to be organized and to lead the struggle on a consistent Marxist-Leninist approach. So this was the first time that Marxism-Leninism would actually make its impact felt in Swaziland. And the cause for socialism became more pronounced since then. And the campaigns that we've been running have been able to awaken the people to the fact that we are not just fighting against the oppressive monarchy right now, but we are also fighting against imperialism. And now the link between our struggle for democracy and the struggle for socialism being made, as well as the struggle against imperialism in the world. And the need, therefore, to offer our solidarity to all people who are fighting in the world. For instance, the army in Swaziland, the people who helped set up the army in Swaziland was Israel. And Israel pushing its interests to spread its apartheid ideology. Today, Israel still remains allies with Mswati, the third now, with the ruling regime. And in addition to that, there is the problem of Taiwan. Taiwan is being used in Swaziland, and is benefiting from the economy of Swaziland through the act that was passed by the United States in 2000. It's called African Growth Opportunity Act, AGOA. So through that act, the USA created preferential trade relations for Swaziland and other African countries. So Swaziland in the textile and clothing sector became a beneficiary through that. But the companies that are actually doing the business and benefiting, a great majority of them are from Taiwan. There's about 15 of them, and I think 13 of them are Taiwanese companies. So this is, if we look at it closely, you see that it is actually a policy to benefit Taiwan through Swaziland. And the intentions of that, of course, is for the USA to continue to destabilize China through the angle of Swaziland and benefiting Taiwan in the process. So the people of Swaziland, in fact, do not benefit from these trade relations policy, which is known as AGOA. It only benefits the USA and Taiwan. So Taiwan is being used to be some sort of a semi-colony of Swaziland. And Taiwan, in turn, the Taiwanese government, in turn, it comes back to support the royal family through donations or other infrastructure development to rescue the regime from collapse. And so the Communist Party of Swaziland has been launched the Democracy Now campaign in 2019. And through that Democracy Now campaign, we're able to go through to the grassroots, to go to the people, to awaken them, to conscientize them to the fact that there is now an urgent need to overthrow the regime. That if we allow the regime to rule one day more, we will inherit a shell of a country, because the regime is looting a great deal. It has increased their levels of looting the country in many ways, and they are taking money out of the country just in case they are kicked out of power. And therefore, the Democracy Now campaign has been spreading all over the country. And in 2021, the people of Swaziland stood up to wage relentless struggles against monarchical rule for democracy. Of course, there were great milestones made in that action. Largely, it was led by the students and the youth. And this was the group that was saying that we are the last generation to be oppressed. And so the youth in our struggles is very, very important in this regard. And with the youth doing the mobilization in the communities, with the youth leading the struggles even in the cities, now it became clear that for us to be free, we need to unapologetically and decisively wage a struggle to overthrow the monarchy and establish a democratic republic. And for the first time, we had the struggles spreading to the communities. And with the work that we had done in the many years, we were able to fairly guide the revolution towards the correct line. And in their greatest numbers, the people were already saying, any change that we want now must be a change for a democratic republic. So in their numbers, so it was also another milestone that the people in their numbers would be saying, now we were fighting for the total overthrow of the monarchy and establishment of a democratic republic on a multi-party basis. So this is a struggle that we've waged thus far, and we think that with more international solidarity, which we really need at this point, we will be able to win, and the people will be able to set up a truly democratic government and a system as well, and that the economy, importantly, will be owned by the people, because we are saying that the land, which is controlled by, which is absolutely controlled by the monarchy through the chiefs in the communities who serve the monarchy, this land must be returned to the people, to be democratically owned by the people. And these policies of arbitrary evictions need to end and be ended by the people. We are saying that the economy, as said, as I talked about, the Taiwanese companies which are exploiting the people and our environment, the economy itself, the industries must be owned by the people. So the new democratic state should take charge of all those aspects, and on behalf of the people, but democratically. Those things need to happen. The various policies that are spread all over Swaziland. So he has 15 wives and so many policies, therefore. He builds palaces for all his wives. So all these palaces must be converted into public property. All these palaces must come back to the people. All these royal residents must be confiscated and be brought to the service of the people. And that is the message that the Communist Party of Swaziland makes. And of course, it is not a message that is that appeals to imperialism. Hence, the need for international solidarity also to be strong with the Communist Party, but also with the people of Swaziland in their fights. So we appreciate the work that comrades have done in the Friends of Swazi Freedom, from setting up Friends of Swazi Freedom and also organizing and spreading the movement over throughout. And we hope that more people, even from many other countries, will be able to fully participate in the Friends of Swazi Freedom and be able to spread the movement, the solidarity movement, across the world, so that the story of Swaziland, the story of the fighting people of Swaziland is well understood across the world, and that it is practically supported. Thank you so much, comrades.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Comrade Pius. And hello, Comrade Mbongan, Comrade Simfue. Welcome as well. Good to have you all here. I want to open the floor up. If anyone has questions they want to ask about what's going on in Swaziland, anything really, feel free to ask those right now. Let's see.
I have a question. If
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead. And then Madi, you can ask yours.
Okay. Well, first, thank you so much for explaining all that, Pius. That was very educational, and I definitely learned a lot. And I agree that the international solidarity is extremely important, it sounds, because of how advanced and explicitly Marxist-Leninist the movement in Swaziland is. My question is about the kind of class situation in Swaziland, because it sounds like one of the achievements of the Communist Party has been to raise the understanding of the people of Swaziland from just a fight for against monarchy to a higher understanding of the role of colonialism and imperialism in Swaziland as well, and how these things are you cannot disconnect these things. So my question is there any sort of national bourgeois capitalist class in Swaziland that is sympathetic to this fight, or is the situation of colonialism so severe that any wealth generated is either going to the monarchy or being completely extracted by foreign capitalists?
Thank you, Zach, and for those words of encouragement as well. In Swaziland, okay, firstly, it's largely rural country, but small. So it's not exactly the same way as some people would liken it with the old China, or because China was a huge country, as well as Russia, huge country during the time of Lenin, was a huge country. So you had largely purely peasant communities in those countries. In Swaziland, it's a slight difference of it, because the person can be a peasant, but also be working in the cities or urban areas. So the person can become a peasant and a proletariat at the same time. That is one of those dynamics that we face. But largely, it's a rural country, and about 70% of the people or more, they live in rural areas. And this is one thing that the monarchy has used to suppress the people, because they found it much easier to control the people through chiefs. And the chiefs in particular, they control more, they have more control in the rural areas where peasants are based. And that control of the land is much stronger there in the rural areas. So they've used those chiefs to suppress the people there. And hence, in 2021, when that wall was broken, they released the army on the people. When that chief's wall was broken, they released the army. But now, so you have a situation where we have the working class being very strong, and in most instances, the struggles have been led by the proletariat in the industrial areas. And now it's spread to the peasants coming in to also be active, especially in defense of their land and the demand for ownership of the land. But of course, the first, when colonialism was deepening and international capital having a more stranglehold on Swaziland, over time, there was a new class which was being formed in Swaziland, which was the bourgeoisie. But again, the people who were the first to be owners of capital were coming from the royal family. So people from the royal family themselves were the first to be the national bourgeoisie, if you may put it like that. So those were the people who were actually the first ones to benefit and uplift their social position in Swaziland. So it was not people from far-flung places, but so you had to be closer to the royal family to get opportunities, even study opportunities, such that today, many of the business persons in Swaziland, you find that one way or the other, they are related to the royal family. And therefore, they also, in a way, defend the royal family. Of course, with the passage of time, we have had now that we've had people who are now not closely linked with the royal family who are running businesses. So more bourgeois. And some of them also from a liberal approach, though, supporting the struggle for democracy. So there is also that class which is growing, which is now beginning to support the struggle for democracy, but mostly from a liberal point of view. And this is partly this is part of the work that still needs to be done in terms of organizing that group to support the struggle fully. But of course, we have to remember that every class fights for its own interests. Now, even though there may be those who support the struggle for democracy within the bourgeois class, we know that they are supporting the struggle for their own interests, not necessarily for the interests of the people as a whole. Thank you, comrades.
All right, thank you, Comrade Pius. Madi, I know you raised your hand. If you want to ask your question, go right ahead. Madi, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, go ahead, ask your question.
Yeah, sorry, it's a bit windy here. Thank you, Comrade Pius, for this, and thanks for being here. I have two questions. I'm from Egypt. My name is Mahdi. I'm from Egypt. I live in the US. I have a certain lens through which I see Africa. My questions are, how is the situation with South Africa currently? How is the current South African government? How are relations with Eswatini or Swaziland? And how, because South Africa is geographically very, very relevant if any kind of liberation is to happen in your country. And the second question really is about the African Union. How do you know the African Union views the situation, and what is the official, what is their official designation, if you will?
Thank you so much, comrade. Comrade Madi. Of course, on the first question, on the question of the situation South Africa and Swaziland. South African politics generally, they have great influence within the region, and that's also in Swaziland. There's a great influence, and partly because, of course, there's a long history of Swazi comrades who also contributed to the struggle against apartheid, but also some of the South African comrades who also contributed to our struggle, even during the time against the time of the struggle against apartheid. Now, but of course, with South Africa was became the chair of the Southern African Development Community, SADC, in 2021. And that was during the nationwide protests. So President Cyril Ramaphosa was the chairperson. And because we want to show the practicality of these relations. But their actions, however, were more about maintaining the status quo, in fact, because the leaders within the region themselves, they have helped to protect the ruling regime one way or the other. And this is despite the fact that SADC, as a body of states, has its protocols on democratic elections, on democratic governance. And they have never held Swaziland to account for any of the violations of these protocols to which Swaziland has actually signed. And this is the same thing that happened with when South Africa was chairing the regional body. President Cyril Ramaphosa, for instance, in November 2021, he visited Swaziland, he visited Mswati, they had discussions with him, and they they agreed that Swaziland is going to have a national dialoguing forum within 3 months. It's 2023 now, and nothing has happened. And President Ramaphosa has moved on from that. He's no longer the chairperson. So that's the situation. That's how everything has really happened over the years. There's always those delaying tactics, giving some soft promises to the people that very soon there's going to be some dialogue, there's going to be some discussion about democracy. And every time nothing comes of it. And Swaziland is never held accountable for it. And so it is always allowed to go on scot-free. And it's the same thing with the African Union. And that's why, as the Communist Party, we always remind the people that their freedom is in their hands, not SADC, not the African Union, not the United Nations, not the USA, not the European Union, all of whom, in fact, are just exploiters. SADC and the African Union themselves, they are nothing but playing field for imperialism. They are under the control of and the funding from imperialist forces. So really anything that they can do on Swaziland is only going to be something that is going to allow imperialism to continue to have that stranglehold on the African continent, but also on Swaziland. And this is why our insistence to always say that we needed to have a strong trade union movement in Swaziland. We need to have a strong peasants movement. And in that regard, we have been building community councils down in the communities. We are building community councils for the defense of the people, for the propagation of the struggle, but also we are building community councils to ensure that they take care of the welfare of the people, especially within this crisis. And also as grassroots, as elements for grassroots democracy for now and in the future. Those are the communities which are going to defend the revolution. And insofar as international solidarity is concerned, while we will continue to push the SADC, African Union, the United Nations to put pressure on the ruling regime, we prioritize grassroots mobilization, even when it comes to international solidarity. We think that it is important that we have the trade unions themselves involved in the struggle in solidarity with Swaziland. The students in the various colleges and universities and so on. They need the people, in other words. It should be the people who are the main drivers of solidarity. Although, of course, the countries and the states, the governments also become important in terms of piling pressure. But there will be no pressure from the UN, from the African Union, from the SADC. There will be no pressure on that they're going to place as if the people on the ground are not putting pressure. So if the people of the USA, for instance, if they do not pile pressure on their government, on their Congress, to ensure that Mswati gets isolated. Mswati must never be able to set foot in the USA, for instance. That is an important aspect of pressure. And the artists, musicians, and other performers must, especially who are coming from the USA, must be aware of the struggle of Swaziland and boycott Swaziland. They must not set foot in Swaziland until the country has democratized. So those for us are the most important aspects. The people are number one, even from a solidarity point of view. Thank you, comrade.
Yeah, thank you for that, Comrade Pius. I have a question. If anyone else wants to ask, just please use the raise hand function. I'm taking note of a stack here. My question, Comrade Pius, is how do you interact, like, and how do you navigate the contradictions? Because I know that you said that there's some more liberal elements like Kudemo, I know, for example. So how do you handle like working with them and having solidarity with them without giving into like revisionism and stuff? I was just wondering how you navigate that as a party.
Thank you, Comrade Justin. Of course, it's never easy, but we know as from even from the teachings and the times of Marx and Engels that it is very important to, as best as possible, forge the greatest and the broadest unity among the masses and the organizations of the people. And in that regard, to isolate the regime more and more. So, but of course, it's not easy. So what we do often, we always insist that every kind of unity must be unity in purpose. It must be unity in the struggle. So in the protest actions, in the various protest actions, we always work together. But knowing that indeed we have different ideological outlooks with some of the forces who may be liberal, and we try to find some minimum common ground in the main. But we never for a moment cease to remind the people of what the struggle is about. And in that regard, we continue to run political schools. We have the winter school, which often is in end of July. And we also run the summer school, which is in December, which is our summer in December. Now, through those schools, we are able to even capacitate the members even from other political parties. And in that regard, we indirectly build and strengthen those other organizations which begin to see the matter in our way, through our angle. Already we have, for instance, Kudemo. They are trying to have more relations with us as the Communist Party, but we have said we'll see with them. Our task is not about elite pacts. Our task is about the people on the ground. So as long as we build the movement on the ground, we'll be able to sort of influence even the direction of their organizations towards a minimum program for democracy. So those are just some of the ways in which we try to build the movement, but also in that regard to try and work with the other forces in the struggle and isolate the regime. Thanks, comrade.
Yeah, thank you, comrade. That's fantastic and very relevant for us in Kansas. Pedro, I see you have your hand raised. I just wanted to say one thing real quick, though. Comrade Pius was saying he wants us to contact the legislators, right? So just so you know, those of us in Kansas, your senators are named Jerry Moran and what's the other dude's name? But anyways, go look up your senator, go look up your congressperson. What was that, Sam?
Sorry, Roger Marshall.
Yeah, Roger Marshall and Jerry Moran. That's our senators. And yeah, just go ahead and call them. They all have offices in Kansas as well as DC. But anyways, Pedro, go ahead.
Hey, well, I just want to thank Justin and the group for organizing this. And I also had a question, right, pertaining to the theories of Marxism, Leninism, and the importance of it. I'm actually a grad student in the ethnic studies department. So in my, where I study at in the UC system, there's a lot of focus on decolonial thought, right? And a lot of these ideas of decolonial theory, but a lot of folks have this tendency to push back against the theories of Marxism, and especially like Marxism, Leninism, right? So I wanted to for me personally, from the stuff that I read, in my background, like reading a lot of Leninist theory, I feel like for me, I think it's like the only the only theory that has the potential to liberate, decolonize, and democratize, these countries that are under the siege of Western imperialism. So I think I wanted to ask, how do you view as Marxism, Leninism as a guiding theory that kind of has the potential to liberate the country, in contrast to which I would say more idealistic sorts of theories that are rooted in post-structuralist or anarchist, tendencies of thought.
Thank you, Pedro. And yes, you are correct. I agree with you that Marxism-Leninism is the only one there really which is capable of liberating a people. And over time, we have had some people from other forces trying to discredit Marxism-Leninism, but we have seen how they have failed. And governments across the world have spent literally trillions in dollars to try and destroy Karl Marx, but they have failed over the years. So, and the reason is that this is a science, and it's consistent in its analysis of society, because it's a scientific approach now, and it does not sell out its scientific basis. And without Marxism-Leninism, I do not think that people actually will be free in the true sense of the word. And one of the problems that we have faced in Africa is that whilst many of the liberation movements, they were using Marxism-Leninism as a guiding tool, but as soon as they took over, they abandoned that. They abandoned the Marxist-Leninist line. And the results have been a policy of neo-colonialism. And now, which means basically colonialism, colonizers just give you a flag, they allow you to have your national anthem, and they allow you to run your government, but still they continue to control the economy and the policies of the country. So because the comrades in the liberation struggle, in the transition period, they abandoned totally Marxism. Now we had imperialism deepening. So this is one of the clearest examples that the abandonment of Marxism-Leninism leads to destruction. The economies of Africa have continued to be destroyed, whilst the continent got looted even more. And that's why the importance of remaining consistent in the scientific analysis of society and using Marxism-Leninism as a guide. And Engels clarified this thing when he talked about when he was explaining their outlook, and said it's not a dogma. It's not a dogma. It's a guide to action. It's a continuous guide to action. And with Lenin even explaining it further, that the important thing is the concrete analysis of concrete conditions all the time. You remain with that. And this is why even in our country, we have said that the minimum goal of the struggle, as we fight for socialism, but the minimum goal that we need to break is to ensure that we have a democratic republic. So in the struggle for socialism, it is very important that we overthrow the monarchy and every feudal element that that remain in Swaziland, because they are keeping the country backward, as far back, even backward before capitalism. So we want a country that will be in the modern world, and it is because of the use of the scientific approach that we have said that. And as I've said that we have been running political schools all again consistently, and this message has actually spread even to all into all the other forces that are fighting for democracy. This message that that message has actually been able to creep many people even in the other forces. So that's the importance of Marxism-Leninism, and we've seen that from a practical aspect in our country. Thank you, comrade.
I got another one, Comrade Pius. So I think that obviously religion in Swaziland is much different from religion in Kansas. For example, like we don't have missionaries here, but I still think there is a strong similarity in the sense that in our state of Kansas in particular, just like in Swaziland, you know, I know that the preachers talk about, Mswati is God's incarnation on earth, and he is the divine right to rule and be the king. And in Kansas, our religion here is also used to push a reactionary wing, like, oh, Jesus hates communism and socialism, and Jesus wants you to support imperialism, and Jesus wants you to be, you know, bigoted against transgender people, LGBT people, and so on. So I think in that regards, there are a lot of similarities. So my question for you, comrade, is in the experience of the Communist Party of Swaziland, how do you navigate the contradictions around religion, and how do you deal with that?
Yes, you are right. On the question of religion is a big issue, the very big issue in Swaziland, because particularly Christianity in Swaziland is very deep. It's very deep, and of course, it comes with that history of colonialism itself as an imposed religion over time. Now it is deep within the people of Swaziland, and it's going to be very difficult to lift them off from that type of oppression, because Christianity has easily made people to voluntarily submit themselves to oppression. And in that regard, the regime has taken advantage of that. And they use religion to strengthen their rule. They have used religion to justify oppression. So it's very deep, and it's very difficult to uproot. But the way we have approached it from an ideological point of view was to say that we need to go and work with the people wherever they are. We need to go to the people wherever they are. If they are in churches, we have to go there and be with them. They must see us. They must know us. They must understand our thoughts. In our families, we need to speak about the things that matter to people's lives. So we do not just go when we are speaking to the people, we don't go out and just shut them down in terms of their beliefs. We say it is fine. You believe this, you believe the world was made in 7 days, that's your belief. However, what we talk about in the main is about the things that are basic in terms of the needs of the people. And this is why upfront we speak about the importance of water, the importance of food, the importance of land, the importance of education, the importance of healthcare, the importance of jobs and economic development. So we find that the more we speak about the practical aspects of human life, at the same time, we are able to get people who may be highly religious to work with us more. And some of them even mentioned that you communists, you are very good people. You want what's good for the people. We just maybe, one day we hope that you will accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior. But still, they work with us and they support the Communist Party in many ways. Of course, there are those differences that may be there, but we think that the more we speak about the practical aspects of struggle, about the needs of the people, and showing to them how the people are oppressed, and also to show them that their own religion, their own Christianity is being misused by the regime to continue ruling over them. So now we have had a lot of people, even from the religious community, we have seen them come up actually to present opposing prayers. You know, the monarchy organizes prayers in his palace and calls pastors and priests into his palace to pray for the strengthening of his rule. On the other hand, we have had many religious leaders calling opposing prayers, prayer sessions for the freedom of the people. So we see that as an important aspect, despite the fact that it does not necessarily mean that they've become communists or they're holding to our, but it's an important development in terms of outlook when people start praying for freedom. So that is an important aspect. We see it as an advance from the time when everybody just sang the praises of the earthly god, which is Mswati, and now are moving towards liberation from this earthly god. So those are some of the tactics that we advance, and we also meet the religious leaders in Swaziland. Amongst there are three organizations in the Christian community. There is the Council of Swaziland Churches, there is the League of Churches, and there is the Conference of Churches. The two, which is the Conference of Churches and the League of Churches, those two support the monarchical rule in the main, particularly the League of Churches. They were strong supporters of the monarchy. On the other hand, we have the Council of Churches. Those are supporters of the democratic movement. In the League of Churches, we have in the Council of Churches, in the main, we have the Catholic Church, the Anglican Church, the Methodist Church, and the Lutherans as well. Mostly those, they are progressive. They have a progressive outlook stemming from Christian basis. And those in the main are the ones we often tend to work with. And so there's something progressive about them. So those are some of the tactics, comrade. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Pius. That is enormously helpful. And hello, I see Comrade Zueli from CPS joined. So welcome, Comrade. Glad to have you here as well. Yeah, that's like, I mean, if you live in Kansas, you already know what it's like. Anyone else have any questions? Yeah, Ahmed, go ahead.
Oh, it's Mahdi again. Oh, I must have.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it says I was like, oh, who is Ahmed? Okay, that makes sense.
Comrade Pius, I have a question about have you thought about your constitution? Have you thought about plans for having consensus on new founding principles, things like that? Because having a document when the day comes when you are able to take hold of reins of power, if you will have to work on a document of a constitution. Have you thought about that? Is it limited to the party, or have you reached out to other maybe parts of society in that regard?
Thank you, Comrade Ahmed. Yes, that's the constitution indeed is very important, because we have said that ultimately there must be a democratic constitution for the new Swaziland. And now with and elections, democratic elections, the new constitution. And the first things that we have said that we need in the transition period, we need to have a conference for democracy. And this conference for democracy must be populated by the various groupings which are of interest to the democratization of the country. And that includes the trade union movement, the political parties, faith-based organizations, the youth, the women, people with disabilities, gender representatives, and so on and so forth. But it must be as representative as possible. And in that conference for democracy, the constitution is part of those aspects which need to be discussed, including the economy and the law moving forward. And because for us, we have been learning a great deal from other countries, even the socialist and even non-socialists. We are trying to learn from them about their constitutions, how they're phrased and everything. Especially the Cuban constitution is one important reference point we've made. So yes, we have, we do think about the constitution. At this point, it's more about laying the ground and the principles of what needs to be done on the economy, on what needs to be done on terms of policies of the country, and including other aspects in the country. The regime had, today they have their constitution, which was passed in 2005. And that constitution was basically the resurrection of the 1973 decree, which banned political parties and cemented the king's powers. By the way, the current constitution in Swaziland, this 2005 constitution, they were helped by the Commonwealth to draft it. The Commonwealth, which is headed by now the King of England, at that time the Queen of England, of UK. So they were helped by them. So we want a complete break from that capitalist-oriented constitution. We would want a constitution where that is going to preserve the rights of the people and also be able to, practically speaking, uplift the standards of the people. So some of the forces we have had, but informal discussions on those aspects. But I think it is one of those issues which we are going to be working on moving forward. Thank you, comrades.
Thank you. That's very good to hear. I hope it becomes something that people can unite on.
Indeed, comrade.
Yes, Comrade Pedro, go ahead.
Oh yeah, interesting. So one thing that I was wondering is like, does like the Communist Party of Swaziland, do they have any like cables or ties with like the Communist Party of China? Is there any sort of like, like solidarity or any sort of like collaboration going on?
Oh yes, we do have relations with the Communist Party of China, although they are not really strong at this point. We often we affiliate in the same communist and workers' parties under the solid net, and we have met the leadership of the Communist Party of China, the ones that are in South Africa, especially through the embassy. So yes, we do have the links with them, and the relations that we have, of course, we are still building much stronger relations with them to ensure that we have solidarity amongst together together. So yes, there are relations between us and the Communist Party of China. Although I must be clear that we still wish that they would be more deeper, these relations, and become more practical in terms of solidarity. Thanks, Comrade.
Very good. Comrade Danny's got his hand raised, but real quick, I just want to say, as the treasurer to Friends of Swazi Freedom, Danny has, I just want to say, Comrade Pius, Danny here has been one of your by far most prominent material supporters. He's helped you guys out a lot. Go ahead, Danny, go ahead with your question.
Shut up, you don't need to praise me. So my question is more about the different activities that you do. Obviously, you do agitation, and I know that you established some sort of community clinic sometime in the past. What kind of social economic activities do you do as a party? Or do you have like affiliates who are very strong sympathizers with you, and you can organize some local businesses to help you in your fight?
All right. Thank you, comrades. And thank you, of course, for the solidarity. It's really helpful. What we do normally, our struggle, I must say, for the most times, we have been able to self-fund our struggle from the comrades who work, and those comrades who may have informal businesses themselves. That of course, in addition to other solidarity that we get from international forces, those who are friends. But of course, it is not an easy process. Normally what we have as well, we have formed our Red Army sports team. It's part of, on the one hand, we are trying also to reach the people in their communities. So in terms of direct support local businesses, it is still a very difficult process because we do not really have those. And it is an aspect that we've been trying to build over time to have local businesses. And we think that if we can share ideas, especially on that, we think it will be very helpful for us in terms of funding the struggle, because you will be aware that it's very difficult to, as a communist party, get supported in terms of resources, whether it's finances or other material. It's very difficult because we are sort of fighting against the interests of those capitalists. And so it is not a very easy terrain for us. And yeah, I think we can work on that together and find ways to fundraise for the struggle. Thanks, Comrade.
See, I want to read a comment here. It was Mbongan from CP Swaziland, and it looks like we actually have the official Communist Party of Swaziland is here with us now. Thank you all for joining. Mbongan says, revolutionary greetings, dear comrades. May I take this opportunity? Appreciate you for organizing such a wonderful session. I have to introduce myself as head of Workers Commission from the Communist Party of Swaziland. Here to have a meeting as the Vanguard Party, where we will specifically deliberately on the trade union issues across the continent, if not the world, for we are the economy generators, but not benefiting, but only giving the ruling class and also giving a comprehensive analysis of neocolonialism. And thank you, comrades, lastly, for using the name Swaziland instead of Eswatini. For we, as the working class people in Swaziland, don't support the changing of Swaziland to Eswatini by one man. We don't support individualism, power to the people. Yes, comrade, before you joined, it's actually one of the first points we talked about there. Ah, okay. Okay. Oh, hello, comrade. There we go. Okay. Yeah, it's like I was saying, so you can read it here. Yeah, that was just unilaterally changed. And what else? Yes, I'm gonna DM, if you want my phone number, if you have a one-on-one meeting or something, then comrade, I just messaged you my phone number and we can talk on WhatsApp there. I sent that to you as a direct message, and we can catch up sometime and have a conversation about that. Let's see. Questions, anyone? Let's see what else to say here. Okay, Zuelia joined the national chairperson. Okay, that's great. That's great. I'm glad that we're getting to meet everyone. Oh, go ahead, comrade. Oh, okay. We're going on about the 2-hour mark. Does anyone else have any more questions? I can stay on for probably about 20 more minutes, but then I have to run to the store to get my kids some medicine, because unfortunately they have caught the flu and they are both sicker than a dog right now. Okay, it looks like no one else has any more. Oh, John wants to ask how. Oh, that's a very good question. Comrade John asks, how do you, the Communist Party, as a Communist Party, how do you all stay consistently optimistic and maintain your morale through the struggle? Because yeah, I know that they've been going through a lot of repression. I've been sharing it with comrades here in our group, but I mean, you can look it up. They go through some serious stuff, definite violent repression and everything. So yes, comrade, how do you stay optimistic during that?
Thanks, comrade. Yes, it is difficult. It's a difficult terrain because the repression by the regime is worsening every day, and they are also mobilizing from their side, locally and internationally, to support the regime, to deepen the regime. So it is difficult to remain strong, but with the building of unity amongst ourselves as communists and as the Communist Party, but also the unity that we try and build with other forces. Those are some of the practical aspects which help us to go on, because the regime always tries to isolate us. And in opposition to that, we build unity. And this is one of the first aspects that we used to do. We use unity to ensure that we are not weakened, but also the appreciation of what we are fighting for, the appreciation in each and every one of us of what we are fighting for, the knowledge that our struggle is a noble struggle. That knowledge also keeps us going, despite the fact that in terms of resource-wise, we're not always in our best position, but we know that the people, what they're fighting for, is far bigger than just our own struggles, personally or individually. So those are the things that always keep us optimistic. But also, when we know that there are people out there who are also supporting our struggle, so that element of solidarity has also been very important in terms of keeping us going forward. You know, sometimes you find that some of the comrades who offer solidarity to us internationally, they also get attacked for supporting our struggle, but they continue doing so. So also in their name, we also fight this struggle. We know that it is not just our struggle as well. So those are the aspects which also keep us going. And of course, it would be maybe the comrades, the leadership also can also add on those aspects. I think the chairperson is back now. Is back now online. And I think also the General Secretary is here. The National Treasurer is here. The Treasurer General and the Head of Workers Commission. I think I think if they have
looks like
yeah, okay on their side.
I think Comrade Pius is breaking up. Yeah, if anyone else from the Communist Party, please feel free to speak up if you want, or contribute or answer questions, whatever you want. The floor is yours.
I think they can also add some of those aspects.
Yeah, I think you might have broken up there, Pius, a little bit. Actually,
am I audible now?
I hear you now, comrade. I hear you now.
Yes, I was saying that, yeah, yes, that's what I was saying, that if the leaders would like to make some of the contributions, I think it will actually be enriching.
So I need to go get my kids some medicine. Sam or Zach, would either one of you like to, I mean, you guys can keep going, but I need to personally go get my kids some stuff from the store. Sam or Zach, would either of you like to take over and I'll pass you the host rights?
Yeah, sure thing. I can take over.
Okay.
You have the recording going on your end?
I do. Do I? Sorry, I just want to make you. I'm sorry. Yeah, Zach, you can do it. I meant to say John, but I don't know why I said Zach.
Okay, John can do it too.
Yeah, but no. So you volunteered. That's fine. It's all saving to the cloud anyway. Oh, John has to go. All right, Zach, I'm gonna make you the host. Boom. Okay, it's still recording. It's recording to the cloud, so that'll work out. Comrades, I want to thank everyone for showing up. Feel free, please continue the discussion. By no means is it done, as long as everyone, but if you have to go somewhere, don't feel obligated to stick around. My kids both, like I said earlier, they both have the flu. I really need to go get them some crackers, some peanut butter, and some ginger ale. So especially Comrade General Secretary, Comrade Treasurer, Comrade Pius, Comrade Vongan, thank you all for all showing up so much. This has been extremely informative, and I think I can speak for everyone when I say we have all learned a lot. I know I've definitely learned a lot, even though I came and I still learn something every time we talk. So it's yeah, thank you so much for doing this. And yeah, I need to get going though, so have a good day, everyone, but please feel free to keep on with this for as long as you guys want. All right, have a good one.
Does anyone else have any questions? I don't see any hands raised. Okay, I have one. So the study circle I'm running with some comrades here in the New York. I'm in New York, but in the U.S. we've got a few people spread over. We're currently focused on imperialism and colonialism, and the book we're reading right now is How Europe Underdeveloped Africa by Walter Rodney. So just on that topic, I'm curious, does the Communist Party of Swaziland see the work being done as any part of a broader African context, or is not how you consider it at this point? Because just internationally, as someone from the US, an Africa free of imperialism would be incredibly powerful for the movement globally. And I'm just curious, it's very clearly a national struggle to overthrow the monarchy, as well as there are elements of ridding Swaziland of the legacy of colonialism and ongoing imperialism, like countries like Taiwan. But do you see this struggle in a broader African context in a similar way at all?
Thank you, Zach. Yeah, well, one of the tasks that we have as the Communist Party of Swaziland is to ensure that we make our own contribution in terms of solidarity with other people within Africa who are also fighting for socialism, especially, and total liberation, of course. We particularly have much closer links with communist parties in the African continent, including the South African Communist Party, the Communist Party of Lesotho, Zimbabwean Communist Party, in Kenya, as well as in Sudan, amongst others. So, because we understand that we need to also forge the strongest unity within the African continent, and we view Africa as an important site of struggle to push back against the imperialism, because it is still, colonialism is still being felt in Africa, still being felt strongly. And we continue to try and build the Africa Left Networking Forum. The African Left Networking Forum was formed in 2008, but it weakened over time, and we are trying to revive it and make it stronger. The African Left Networking Forum has communist parties in it and other progressive forces, progressive political parties, especially if they have the outlook of an anti-imperialist outlook. But it also has trade unions and other organizations such as student organizations, youth organizations, and others. So this is the goal towards the freedom of Africa, the total freedom of Africa, because we realize that even after independence, we still remain in bondage. We are still oppressed by imperialism. And so the struggle for African sovereignty is at one at the same time bound with the struggle of the freedom of the people of Swaziland. And we have been trying also to make our contributions to ensure that there are communist parties in each African country, because we realize that, as we said earlier, the importance of Marxism-Leninism, that whilst we may have progressive political parties in Africa, they tend to be very limited in their approach. Even those that may have adopted Marxism-Leninism as a guiding tool. As long as they are not Communist Party, often they are too limited in their scope. And at some point, they tend to turn against the working class. So if we want to ensure the future of the working class, we need to have communist parties across the African continent in the struggle for African sovereignty. Thanks, comrades.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other hands raised. I'll give one last chance to, if anyone has any questions, to put in the chat or unmute and ask. But if there's nothing, then maybe I'll give you the opportunity to say some parting words, Pius, because I do appreciate your time. And I think being aware of the most advanced struggles anywhere on the globe helps, even our struggles in places here like the US. And it also helps inform how we can play a productive role for the struggle in Swaziland as well. But if no one has any other questions, maybe Pius, if you want to say some parting words, and then we can wrap up.
Thank you so much, comrades, and thank you for these discussions. It's been very, very important and enriching. And thanks for the solidarity. It's been very, very important. And thanks for everything you are doing for the Swazi struggle. And let us also, of course, look at the tasks that we have for ourselves following this discussion. Of course, talking to local leaders, whether they are in government or in the various sectors of society, whether you talk about student leaders, trade union leaders, the people that would be very important in terms of putting more pressure on the regime in Swaziland, but also talking to the people to ensure that there's solidarity with the people of Swaziland, but not only the people of Swaziland, also with other people who are also fighting for justice across the world, including the people of Palestine, of Western Sahara, and other countries, and the push against imperialism as well. So let us continue the fight. Thank you so much, and may you have a great one on your side, comrades.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Solidarity, comrades.
Thank you all very much for this, for the doc. Very informative.